Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Today I'm going to show you the guide. I've been talking about this for 2 years and you guys have been asking me to create it for 2 years. I talk about open source software, I talk about using software from companies that don't abuse you, but it's very difficult because the more you go down the rabbit hole of using software from companies that don't abuse you, the more you realize why we are willing to accept abuse, because there is abuse as in a company stealing your data and constantly taking away what you own, and then there's abuse as in trying to get Linux software to work properly. They're different types of abuse, but they can both be seen as abuse. So I've made this guide and I posted it elsewhere. I posted this on my community page, Discord, everything else, but from the comments, it's very obvious that a lot of people haven't found it. So here is the dedicated video to it. You can find the video, I'll link it down below. Over here, Fudo's Guide to a Self-Managed Life Part 1 and Fudo's Guide to a Self-Managed Life Part 2. And yes, this is over 13 hours. For those that do not want to watch a video, you have a wiki entry here with a very detailed table of contents. When we're talking about making things easy, I have pictures for everything. We have code blocks for the stuff that you need to use, not just telling you exactly what it is that you need to type, but also why we're typing these commands and what they do. When telling you how to pick out hardware, we are trying to keep it lighthearted and funny over here. And as you can see from this little bar on the right and the size of the text, that if I hit page down, that's a lot of guide. Yeah, this is why I took off the entire month of October and November from doing YouTube videos. You may have noticed that for October and November, I think I made one video when New York City killed a squirrel. I think like maybe one, max two or something like that. It's because I was writing this. Now, the reason that I did a video to go alongside of this rather than just doing it written, it wasn't so that you have a video guide. That honestly wasn't what I was interested in. What I did when I was making the video guide is I was reliving what I wrote to ensure that everything I wrote actually works. One of the things that drives me insane about Linux documentation, and I can't believe this shit is still freaking scrolling, is that when it comes to Linux documentation, when people say RTFM or read the effing manual, what they're really saying is eat shit and die, because the manual almost never works. There are several times over the course of writing this guide where there was a feature that was in the documentation and it literally doesn't fucking work. It was like, it's not even in the source code of the app. You have to go over to some other branch to get something. Anybody who's tried to use Linux for something like this understands. And sometimes they pretend that they don't understand, because to pretend that it is easy for them on the first time, but difficult for you, means that they're superior. And I don't like that shit. So the whole point with this guide was to make something that's really easy for the layperson to understand. Something that when I write it, like, I know this works because I literally went through every step and double checked it in real time as I was making that video, as I was writing the guide. Let's just go over what this guide goes over. Why build a sovereign cloud? Why build your own router? Building your own router. Setting up free DNS for dynamic DNS so you can access your server even if your IP changes because you have shitty Spectrum internet. Setting up OpenVPN to securely access your device from anywhere. Setting up PF Blocker NG for ad blocking, not only on all the devices in your home, whether it's smart devices, your television, your refrigerator, but for your smartphone when you connect, so that even if you are using applications on your smartphone that have ads in them, as long as you're connected to this, those ads just don't show up. It's gorgeous. You don't need an ad blocker for the software, because you can run an ad blocker on Android inside of the browser, but you can't have ad block for the pieces of software on your phone that come with ads baked into them. But this allows you to block those. Installing a Linux server with RAID 1, LVM, and LUKS encryption, so that if one of your drives dies, it still works. Creating scripts so that when one of your drives ever has an error, instead of just waiting for both of them to die, which is, let's be real, what most people that use RAID 1 do, trust me as a data recovery company on this, it will automatically email you within minutes of one of your drives having an error so that you can fix it rather than end up at Rossmann Repair Group for data recovery because one of your 2 drives failed and you didn't notice because it kept working. That's the problem with RAID 1. It just keeps working. So you can have 5 drives in RAID 1. You know what happens? And when 5 of them die, you end up at Rossmann Repair Group when it stops working, unless you have alerts. Using virtual machines, using Docker, and understanding the basics of Docker, like the networks and containers, volumes, and so on. Configuring the server's networking for virtual machines using bridge interfaces. Preparing virtual machine management. Creating virtual machines. Setting up MailCow for calendar and contacts. Setting up self-managed email with MailCow and Postmark so that you can send emails from your server that's sitting in your closet and they can be received by anybody from Microsoft emails to Google and Apple emails without having to worry about ending up at spam. and also having your own special spam controls. Using Home Assistant to control your air conditioners in full smart home control, so that if you have had the AC like at a high temperature and you know that you're going to be coming home, you can just lower it 30 minutes before you get home so that your house is nice and cool without having to burn when you get home. It's a nice thing there. Getting home surveillance systems, so that you have alerts when people go by your house, and also being able to get those alerts directly on your phone immediately when something comes by, and being able to know what it is. This is a person. This is a dog. That is a truck. That is a car. Being able to see it and play it the moment it comes in without ever having to have these devices connect to the internet directly. Your camera doesn't have to connect to the internet. Your DVR doesn't even have to connect to the internet. It can all stay on your local network. And as long as you're connected to your VPN, you'll be able to see alerts. Using OpenOffice to replace Google Sheets and Google Docs. Setting up Image to replace Google Photos. Using SyncThing to replace Google Drive, and using Nextcloud Notes to replace Google Keep. Free PBX and Unitel SIP trunking setup so that you can have a business phone system where you can use, well, I used to recommend stuff like Repair Shopper, but you can have a business phone system where the caller ID will actually change based on the status of the customer ticket when you attach it to your CRM system, which is very cool. So how to set up your own complete, fully functional business phone system that runs in the same server. Setting up a self-hosted Bitwarden password manager. I personally don't recommend this for a number of reasons, but if you wanted to. Setting up ZFS for data storage. So you could set up a 160 or 200 terabyte array where it will self-heal itself if anything happens, if there's any sort of data corruption, and if one or two, or even three of your drives dies, you're still fine. But we're also going to set that up so that the moment there's even the tiniest error with any of those drives, it is going to be checking for it constantly, and it will email you the moment that it occurs. Again, who cares if you have 3 redundant drives if you don't notice until they all fail? It's the biggest problem with ZFS and RAID. It works so well that you don't even know when it's fucked unless you set up your alerts. And trust me, nobody's ever sets up alerts. Just guess how I know that. How to back up your virtual machines on a regular basis so that if anything ever occurs and you mess up with what you're working on, you type in 2 or 3 commands and it immediately brings everything back to exactly the way it was before for either your Google Services virtual machine, your email virtual machine, Home Assistant, phone system, whatever else. How to access the files from any device in your house or from your phone. So you can watch one of your Linux ISOs that you have stored on your home computer directly from your phone, wherever you are in the world, without it having to be exposed to the internet. And setting up Nextcloud Notes to replace Google Keep. Setting up trusted and untrusted Wi-Fi with TP-Link EAP610s, and also how to set it up with a Kamada controller software they have, so that if you're using let's say you have a large house or you have a large office space and one access point is not enough, you can add 2 or 3 or 5 of those access points, one on the 4th floor, one on the 3rd floor, one on the 2nd floor, and so on and so forth, so that you have seamless roaming. So if you had a file transfer going at several megabytes or 50 megabytes a second, you could just walk from floor to floor and it will continue to work without ever disconnecting, all with great service. Setting up a Linux-based home entertainment system so that you could watch things in a nice environment with a small form factor computer if you so want to. Putting together an affordable home hi-fi. Setting up an elegant hi-fi setup and how to pick out good audio equipment at rock bottom prices to have an excellent experience listening to audio and movies without breaking the bank or buying garbage little speakers. And some thoughts on some other things. This is a very, very comprehensive guide, and it covers virtually every single subject that you could ever possibly want. There is a reason that I took 2 months off of my life to write this. This was, every time I wrote this thing, I would think to myself, could my grandma understand and follow this? And if the answer was no, I would delete everything and just go back and write it from scratch. And every time I wrote a section from scratch, I would have a computer that was set up from scratch. I would make sure that every single thing that I wrote actually worked when I set it up from scratch, following my own instructions. So I'm not allowed to use something from my head that I had memorized. What I wrote has to work for me. So this is that. What I'd like to do with this wiki is I'd like to have 2 separate ways of using this. Everybody's going to have their own way to do something. Oh my God, why'd you use this instead of OPNsense? Why'd you use this instead of Proxmox? Why'd you use UFW instead of IPT? It's like, because I did, bro. Because I did. Like, that's literally just going to be my stock answer to like, why did you use this instead of, it's because I did. There's 50,000 million fucking ways to do every single thing that I discussed here. There are many like it, but this one is mine. If you want to see how I did it, you want the answer to that question, how did I do it? That's how I did it. Why did I do it that way? Because I did. Like that's going to be my stock answer anytime somebody asks that question. It works. That's why I did it this way. It works. Even if there's a way out there that is a little bit better, with Linux, I take nothing for granted. Once I have something that works, I hold on to that shit for dear life. Some of this is stuff that I started doing 1 or 2 years ago. A lot of this is crap that I started doing in 2011. And if the way that I'm doing it works, there is no way in hell I'm going to switch it out for something else that seems like it may be better, but I follow the documentation and nothing works, and I bang my head against the wall and want to cry, because that's my experience of Linux. You can do all this stuff however you want. This is just a template to show you what's possible. I know that this thing works. And what I really want you to do is check this out, get inspired by it, and do the shit your own way. The entire fun of doing something like this, it's like restoring an old vintage car or building your own computer for gaming and video editing. You can watch somebody online do it. The fun part is building the shit yourself. It's picking your own parts. It's the journey of figuring everything out. It's nice to have a template of something to start from, so you know what works. But I want you to have a template of what you know works, and then you can grow from there and try different stuff and different distros and different Docker configurations and everything else to your heart's content. So we're gonna have 2 ways of doing this. We have a wiki with my guide that I know works, and the only edits that I want to occur to this are if there's a typo, if a URL stops working. I typed, like D disk or V disk instead of F disk, or there's an obvious typo. And the second thing I want to do is allow people to create their own pages for their own way to do it. So if you have your own way of doing this and you think that the way I did it is absolutely fucking stupid, which it may very well be, you can set up your own page that says, here's how I would do this. As long as it's correct, you're good. This page, I do not want this to be, changed into, instead of using this distribution. No, because I like having a reference that I know works, because I spent countless hours of my life redoing the actual process in its entirety to ensure that what I wrote down actually works. If you find this type of stuff interesting, go for it. I guarantee you that this is going to be a fun process, if nothing else, if you actually just want to try getting into it. I had a lot of fun making this, and honestly, it was the process of making this that got me excited to do the Consumer Protection Wiki. I'll leave a link down below to both this, the part 1 of the video, and part 2 of the video. And I hope you enjoy. I hope you find this useful. If not, well, then 2 months of my life were kind of wasted. But hopefully not. I hope you like it. I like it. BlackBerry likes it. Yeah, fuck up my microphone more, girl. That's what they need, more rumble. More rumble for the people that have the subwoofer on. Yeah, smack that microphone, girl. You smack that mic, yes. Remember when you used to be behaved? That was a long time ago, wasn't it? I'll see you in the next video. I hope this is useful to you, and I hope it inspires you to come up with your own crazy home setup. Make something awesome and learn along the way. If you do, I'll feel like I did something useful here. See you in the next one. Bye now.